Alrighty now, we are 3 minutes after the hour. I just want to welcome everyone to Let's Talk Healing, Return to your Office, Navigating the Transition. This program is brought to you by Workwell NYC in recognition of Mental Health Awareness Month. My name is Ayana Mbonu. I am the program manager for the Be Well program. Next slide. So I'm going to hand it over to Maricela Brea to give us a quick access check.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Maricela Brea, the Director of Workforce and Intergovernment Relations for NYC at Work, our employment initiative at the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities. Before we begin our discussion on return to work, navigating the transition, we're going to go over an access check. If you want to view the PowerPoint, as well as folks, make sure that in the view icon on the upper right-hand corner, you select side-by-side gallery, okay? Closed captioning is available, so we have the live transcript happening right now, and you can always click on the CC icon at the bottom of your toolbar. Feel free to use the chat feature to send messages amongst yourselves and with all of us. And when speaking, please make sure that you state your name. That way we all know who's actually speaking. We will be utilizing the poll feature this afternoon. So we ask that you respond to our questions, and we thank you in advance for your participation. Lastly, presenters will be describing themselves as well as the slides that they are presenting on if there are graphics or photos, so that attendees who are blind or low vision are able to experience what a sighted person experiences. I'll start us off with a self-description. I'm Maricela Brea, a Hispanic American petite female with brown eyes, brown long hair. I'm wearing I guess this is like an off-white blouse with brown patterns under a black blazer. And I'm working remotely from my home office. Now I'm going to turn it over to Ayana. And again, she's the Be Well manager for Workwell NYC with the Office of Labor Relations. Ayana?
Thank you, Maricela.
You're welcome.
Next slide, please. So before we really jump in, I just want to tell you a little bit about Workwell NYC. I'm sure you know who we are already, but just in case. Workwell NYC is your city's worksite wellness program, and we're here to help you live well and work well. And we're here for you with health and well-being resources, programs, and supports to help you move more through our virtual fitness classes, for example. Eat Well, we are chef-led cooking demonstrations. Be Well. Be Well is our mental health, well-being and resiliency program, which brings you this program today. Take Action is our primary care prevention program. Some of their examples of their programming are the diabetes prevention and the hypertension program. And our last initiative, our most new initiative, is Project Build. BUILD stands for Building Understanding, Inclusion, Learning, and Diversity. And their goal is to bring more attention to health equity. And so no matter where you are on your health journey, Workwell NYC is here to help you. So this is a meeting format. You can all see that we're in a meeting format. And next slide, please. And so you are all muted. We just want to talk a little bit about what we're going to do today. So the goal of this forum is a focus on what is in our control. We would be remiss to not mention the anxiety many of us have experienced and continue to grapple with regarding COVID-19, the vaccines, relaxing of the restrictions, and returning to the office. This past year, we've all experienced collective trauma, and that's really important to note. It is natural to feel helpless in the return to work process, and it is a huge change from last year. But today our goal really is to focus on what is in our control. We don't have information today about what individual agencies are doing to bring their workforce back. And so what we would like to really focus on here today is what we can do to help ourselves. We are hopeful to impress upon you that leaning into change and identifying what is in your control within that change will help us all to grow and be well during this period. And so every speaker is important. This is a no judgment zone, so I hope that we all agree to disagree if we don't agree on a topic. And join in on the phone if you'd like to keep yourself anonymous. And be respectful of one another. If you would like to actually during the, if you would like, sorry, during the discussion period, if you'd like to actually be called on and speak, we'd love to hear from you. Just use the reactions button at the bottom of your screen and click on the raise your hand feature, and then we'll put everyone in order and we'll call on you in order. Okay. And next slide. So it is my pleasure to introduce our esteemed panelists. I'll start with Carrie Simon. She's the Associate Deputy Director of the New York City Employee Assistance Program. And we're also joined by Marisela Brea, Director of Workforce and Intergovernment Relations at the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities, as well as Martha Jackson. She's Assistant Commissioner at the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities. We have two more people on our panelists. They are Eunice Lee. Eunice Lee is with the Office of Prevention of Hate Crimes, and Alicia Miranda, also with the Office of Prevention of Hate Crimes. And so I didn't describe myself. So again, I am Ayana Mbonu. I am the Be Well Program Manager, and I am a woman of a certain age. I am an African-American woman. I have braids in my hair. I'm wearing a dark flowered blouse with a black sweater. Alrighty, so let's go to the agenda. What are we going to talk about today? So we'll learn about all the services that are available from our different partners, all of our panelists that are here today. We'll have a healthy discussion, and then we'll end up with talking about some of the self-care practices, excuse me, self-care practices that we can apply for ourselves to help us to be well during this transition. Alrighty, so we'd like to learn who is in our virtual meeting room. So if you don't mind taking a moment and answering a poll, we'd like to learn, were you working from home during the pandemic? Were you working in the field and the office during the pandemic? So the poll, let me see, can I watch it? Okay, 1 second. All righty. So if you don't mind taking a moment answering the poll. All right, can we see the poll? Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Oh, awesome. All righty, so I can't see the results, but it looks like there have been lots of people I see from the chat section working both from home and in the office. So thank you for taking the moment to do the poll. So I just want to really just talk a little bit about working from home and the office and a little bit more about our conversation. I'm not sure whether you know this or not, but less than 1/3 of the city workforce worked remotely during the pandemic. So we all know like fire department, NYPD, the first responders were all in the field, right? But 911 operators, there were lots of teachers. There were also activated persons, employees that were working in the field and in the office during the pandemic. So for instance, Department of Health employees, I'm sure there were ACS employees that were working in the office and in the field during the pandemic. So in actuality, only a small portion of city employees were actually working from home during the pandemic. And so this discussion is going to address not only those returning to the office environment, but those also who were working in the office that now have more employees around. And so what they might be experiencing. Also those who working in the field. I don't know if you went into the city during the pandemic, but for me, the few times that I did go into the city, it was like a ghost town. There weren't many people in the city during the height of the pandemic. And so those people who were working actually in the field, you know, they are, I'm sure, experiencing something now because there are more people around. So overall, I think I'm hopeful that this conversation will be helpful to everyone. Next slide. So I'd like to hand it over to EAP, to Kerry at EAP, to talk a little bit about the services they have to offer us.
Great. Thank you, Ayana. Hi, everyone. My name is Kerry Simon. I'm the Associate Deputy Director of the Employee Assistance Program. I am a cis female, American cis female. I'm wearing a blue button-down shirt. I have short hair and I'm wearing glasses and I have blue eyes. The Employee Assistance Program is a program that is free for all agencies, and we service the non-uniform agencies. And we provide education, information, counseling, individualized referrals to counseling for a wide range of personal and social difficulties. We have a staff of over 30 colleagues who are all licensed therapists. So we could answer a question about just information you may need for resources that have to do with your job or have to do with finances or have to do with childcare, and we can provide you with information and resources. Some people reach out to us because they're having a really hard time, obviously through the pandemic, and just need to talk to someone. And we can provide short-term counseling. We can navigate that with you. We also help you and assist you to get a private therapist associated with your health insurance. We have a close relationship with the city health insurances, and we make sure that we can find someone so you're not paying out of pocket. Go to the next slide. So in addition to that, we have other things that we do, and we've actually created during the pandemic. We provide these weekly support groups that are in the evening in the hopes that people can attend and it's more flexible after work. So for instance, on Monday nights at 8 o'clock, we have a relaxation technique that's led by our music therapist, Michael. On Tuesday nights, we have a support group for people of color. That's Vanessa. On Wednesday nights, we have a grief group. Unfortunately, throughout this year, we know people have had a lot of grief and loss, not only because of COVID, but other things too. And Ian, one of our staff members, does that group. Also on Tuesday night, we also have a BIPOC support group at 8 p.m. as well, an AAPI group at 8 p.m. as well. And then on Friday, we have a resiliency group at 8 p.m. And we'll provide all of these links and information for these groups at the end. If I didn't say it before, this is a service for employees, for retirees and their family. So this is, if you have a daughter, an uncle, a sister, they can reach out to us as long as we know that they are associated with you and you're a worker here at the agency. So we do offer individual, couple, and family services. We also do workshops for agencies. We often have supervisors and managers reach out and say, hey, my staff are going through a lot. Can you have an specialized group for our team? And we have been doing a lot of that throughout the pandemic. We also support supervisors. So if you're having difficulty managing a conversation or want some support around a situation around a staff, we're there to navigate that as well. So we have a lot of different resources. And if you're not sure whether or not we can help, call us or email us anyway. We will respond that day. We are typically open pretty early in the morning from 8, and right now we're up until 7. So please reach out. Everything is confidential and private. We have separate systems. Nothing is shared unless you give us consent. And you can see our information is below on the slideshow, and we'll also provide that information later on. Thank you, Ayana.
Carrie, before we move on to the next person, we have a question.
Sure.
Are your services available to uniformed agencies?
The uniform agencies actually have their own EAP. So we only do those who are not uniformed. So FDNY, NYPD, they all have their own sanitation. They have their own EAP services.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
All righty. All righty, so I'll hand it over to Martha or Maricela, Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities.
Thank you, Ayana. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Martha Jackson, Assistant Commissioner at the New York City Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities. I'm joining you today from my office at 100 Gold Street. I'm joined by a couple of our co-workers as well. On the slide, it's a white background with a lavender bar at the top with the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities, our logo to the left, and describing a little bit about us, the liaison between New York City government, the disability community. It ensures the rights and concerns of the disability community are included in all city initiatives, and that city programs and policies address the needs of people with disabilities. I am a Caucasian woman. I have fair blonde hair, blue eyes. I'm wearing a white blouse, a sort of a waffle pattern white jacket. I have little dangling earrings with silver earrings with a sea pearl. Well, I'm getting an echo. Do you hear me all right? Okay, I'm sorry about that. So just a little bit more.
You're muted.
Martha, you'd like to unmute yourself?
Yes, well, I'm sorry, I didn't know what happened there. Can you hear me all right now?
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay. So our office strives to steadily improve services and programs for approximately 1 million New Yorkers who self-identify living with a disability in all facets of life, including transportation, employment, healthcare, housing, education, access to city services, financial empowerment, and digital accessibility. And in March 2020, like so many of you joining us today, our office is pivoted to provide virtual access to all of our services, and especially to current, consistent information regarding COVID, emergency management, the availability to PPE, access to food, the accessible vaccine sites, home delivery for vaccines and food, and helping our workforce understand and work through the reasonable accommodation process. Our office has assisted hundreds of our participants in understanding their rights and obligations as employees, both of city government and those with our corporate and nonprofit partners. Much like Carrie mentioned, our office is here to support you, your family, your children, any individual with a disability who's looking for assistance. Our office is coming back, and we are here to support you in terms of your transition. To talk a little bit more about some of the specifics, I'm turning it over to Maricela Brea, our Director of Workforce and Intergovernmental Affairs for our Workforce Initiative, NYC at Work. And thank you very much, Ayana, for having us join you today.
Thank you, Martha. If we could go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So I'm just going to provide you with some resources on how we can assist you. As Martha already stated, we have been providing direction and support around the reasonable accommodation process. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us and we can guide and support you in that process. We've been sharing information and assisting in determining, and assisting job seekers as well as city employees in determining what their reasonable accommodations are. We also have had webinars and always depends on a great resource that we recommend, which is the Job Accommodations Network, askjan.org. And, sometimes people with disabilities don't know what they need. So it's important to know what to ask for, to know what you need in order for you to have the tools to perform your job when you go back to the office, or even when you're working at home. So it's important to know your rights and how to take action. And we have a lot of information on this on our website at www.nyc.gov. nyc.gov/MOPD. And you can click on laws, and it's going to go over everything from the Americans with Disabilities Act, the Rehabilitation Act, the State Human Rights Law, and the City Human Rights Law in access to city services. We also have disability service facilitators. This was a direct result of New York City Local Law 27 of 2016. Also referred to as DSF. So these facilitators, they coordinate, and every city agency has one, and basically they coordinate services for people with disabilities. Many times they're doing the outfacing and working with the public. However, many city employees go to them because they can, direct them to appropriate individuals in their agency as it comes to accessibility as well as reasonable accommodations. As far as employment-related complaints for employees and applications for employment that's seeking reasonable accommodation, those are covered under New York City's diversity and EEO policy. However, we are here to assist you and guide you in that process and let you know what next steps you can take to assist you in the process, and make sure that you're getting what you need, because it's important that you have the tools that you need, okay? We also offer assistance with employment through NYC at Work. So, NYC at Work is our signature employment program. And, we recruit, pre-screen, and connect New Yorkers with disabilities to jobs and internships with our established business partners, both in the public and private sector. However, we work with a lot of city employees who may be underemployed or recently are underemployed or just have questions. So we assist them with navigating and understanding the 55A process. So we have been serving as a recruitment arm for city agencies in identifying candidates for them. And in some cases, that is helping current city employees look at their career pathways and how they can move forward, and how 55A can assist them if they are a person with a disability. We recommend that you attend one of our webinars. We have ongoing webinars in partnership with the Department of Citywide Administrative Services on civil service hiring process, New York City career pathways, and the exam process. For individuals with disabilities and their families, we offer access to free one-on-one confidential financial counseling through Empowered NYC. Empowered NYC has counselors that have knowledge and understanding of disability benefits. And sessions are available throughout all the 5 boroughs in New York City through an appointment. So we recommend that you visit nyc.gov/Empowered NYC and schedule an appointment as needed. We look forward to further discussing how we may be able to assist you, and we'll put these resources and these links in the chat shortly. Thank you very much, and I'll turn it back over to Ayana.
Thank you, Maricela. I'm going to hand it over to Eunice to talk a little bit about Office Office of the Prevention of Hate Crimes. Eunice?
Thank you, Ayanna. Thank you so much for having us. Hello, everyone. Thank you for spending your lunch hour with us today. My name is Eunice Lee. My preferred pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm a program manager at the Office for the Prevention of Hate Crimes. I am a Korean American female, and I have dark brown eyes, pretty long hair due to quarantine, as well as I'm wearing a blue dress with some polka dots on it, a silver necklace, as well as a waffle knit light brown cardigan. And as for our slides, it still has the white background and the purple header, which says the name of our office, which is, again, Office for the Prevention of Hate Crimes. I might be using our abbreviation OPHC, so please also note that as I go through this introductory slide. So yes, I'm not sure if you've seen us on some of these other events or webinars. If you're not familiar with us, that's okay. It's because we're fairly new to the city. We actually opened up in 2019, and this was really in response to a troubling rise in hate crimes that we were seeing around 2018 to 2019. So the city was really committed to creating an office that would bring together all the different city agencies, community organizations, the public, to make sure that we were addressing prevention as well as response to hate in our city. So we look at the short term as well as the long term in around 3 main areas. And I wanted to speak very briefly on what those are. So the first is going to be education. So when I say education, you might be thinking like youth initiatives, school engagement. While we do that, we also do a lot of public education and outreach. So we develop a multitude of resources in different languages about what hate crimes are, how to receive support, and what to expect throughout the process. And my colleague Alicia is going to speak a little bit more about that in the next slide. We also coordinate different events and town halls and presentations that you might have seen us on previously. And I think at the heart of our work is also this next pillar, which is going to be community relations. So I was actually speaking with our executive director recently. She says about 80% of our work is relationships. So we really want to bring people together to combat the spirit of hate and disunity and discrimination, and really make sure that people are speaking to one another. Different community organizations are coming together, sharing best practices, telling what we can do as a city to do better in this area. And I'm also proud to announce that earlier today, the mayor actually announced some funding for a new initiative of ours, which is Path Forward. So that is really funding community organizations that are doing work against hate in the city. We also have a network of our community-based partners that advises us, and we also have a parallel network of our city agencies, and those 2 networks work pretty closely together. And our last area that we work in is laws and law enforcement. So in that network of city agencies and city partners, we actually communicate regularly with the district attorney's offices, with the MOPD Hate Crimes Task Force, which is the investigative agency for hate crimes in the city. And we also look into promoting restorative justice responses to hate crime and hate crime offenses. So I'm also going to just pass it on to Alicia, who can tell you a bit more about what we offer and how we can help. And if we can move on to the next slide, I'm going to give it over to my colleague. Thank you.
Thank you, Eunice, and thank you, Workwell NYC for inviting us today. So hello, everyone. My name is Alicia Miranda, she, her pronouns. I'm a Latina. I have, I guess, shoulder-ish length wavy brown hair. I have brown eyes. I also have a nose ring in my left nostril, and I'm wearing a black shirt. So we know that there's been a lot of anxiety around returning to work, apart from the obvious that we're literally living through a pandemic. There has been a rise in hate crimes, not only in New York City, but throughout the country. And we want to share and provide you all with a few resources that we believe may help in making you feel a little safer. So the first of which is information about upcoming bystander intervention trainings. So if you aren't familiar with what these trainings are, they are designed to provide you with different techniques you can use to interrupt violence. So our office has partnered with the Center for Anti-Violence Education and Holla Back to provide 1-hour virtual bystander intervention trainings for city employees this month. Our final workshop is actually later this afternoon. So I'm going to really quickly drop that link into the chat. Again, that's going to be later this afternoon, I believe, at 3 p.m. And if you're not able to attend this training, the City Commission on Human Rights, the Center for Anti-Violence Education, and Hollaback offer ongoing free bystander intervention trainings for the general public. And these, again, are free and open to the public. And so the next two resources that we want to share with you all are What is a Hate Crime and our interagency fact sheet on hate and bias incidents related to COVID-19. So our What is a Hate Crime resource provides detailed information on how hate crimes are being defined in New York State, with examples and how to distinguish a hate crime from bias incidents. And our interagency fact sheet provides information on how to report a hate crime, bias incidents, and information on how to connect to support. And last, but certainly not least, our office has developed an educational presentation called Preventing Hate Together, where we provide information on our office, how hate crimes are being defined, the importance of reporting hate crimes, and providing victim support resources. So if you're interested in having us present Preventing Hate Together to your office, I am going to also drop our contact information in the chat. Handing it back to you, Ayana.
Well, thank you. Thank you all for that great information. And if you do have any of those links that you discussed, you could just drop it in the chat section. Awesome. All righty, so we are at our discussion period. So again, if you would like to ask a question, put it in the chat section. You can raise your hand and we will call on you. Please don't unmute yourself. Just use the reaction button and the raise your hand feature, and we'll call on you and we will unmute you. But I'd like to get the conversation started. So what's on your mind right now? What would you like to tell us? And you can add a question into the chat section if you are a little shy. Wow. Employee burnout. All righty. Employee burnout. So would you like to say a little bit more about that? So, okay, so I'm assuming that you'd like to know what you can do when you are, experiencing burnout. And so if that is your question, Kerry, do you have any thoughts about that?
Yes, I'm sure many of us have experienced employee burnout in the past year. I mean, the first thing I'd like to say is to make sure you know the signs of it, right? And it's pretty typical signs of like overstress, easily irritable, you're not thinking as clearly, your sleep is disrupted, low motivation, and disinterest in the work that you're doing, right? And the first thing you want to be able to do is be self-aware about that. The second thing I would do is to identify what are truly the things that are meaningful to you that take care of yourself. We can throw out many different things to do self-care, but really is like what's important to you. What do you identify as a way of respite for you? The second thing I would recommend is to share this with your supervisor, with colleagues, so there is support around you. A lot of times, we're in this, Western society of do it on your own, work through it, work till 8. That's kind of an honor system, right? It's like a badge of honor that you can do it. It's showing more and more that is not worth it, and actually your productivity goes down. And really kind of reaching out to people saying, hey, I'm burning out. I want to do better work. How can I do this? How can I take care of myself, and how someone at work can take care of myself as well?
Thank you, Kerry. Thank you for that. I know that burnout, it can be very difficult. I know that especially in this past year, we've had so many challenges. And so I think that was, thanks for sharing. And so we have another question. How do you get ready to go back to work? How has it been to the callers on the line who are at work? So I think this is a great question, because there are some of us who have returned to the office. We can see some of you on the call as sharing your screen that are actually in the office. So can we share any kind of best practices that we've experienced being in the office? And feel free to raise your hand. We'll unmute you so that you can share. Well, I've been to the office actually 3 times so far. And what has helped me is planning ahead. My route to the office has changed each time, but I've made sure that for myself, going on the train is something that I like to plan ahead for. And so going to work a little earlier in the morning, making sure, or hopefully that the train won't be as crowded. And if it is, I have enough time to wait for another train to come, has helped me in getting to work in a way that is encouraging and supportive for myself. So that has helped me. Actually bringing my lunch as well. And so I have enough time to go outside, take a seat, and actually enjoy my lunch and have a nice, enjoy the entire hour. So those 2 things have helped me. Does anyone else on the panel like to share if they've been back to the office, what's helped?
Yeah, what has helped me is kind of, Ayanna, exactly what you were sharing, is that to planning ahead. Like, if this happens, what will I do, right? The other thing that I plan for is anxiety, anxious thoughts, right? And to label them, is this a helpful thought or an unhelpful thought, rather than whether something's like true or not. So as I was preparing, it's like, okay, is this a helpful thought right now, that I'm like, what if this happens and this happens, this happens? I could plan, but also kind of taking care of my mental health as well, because there's certain things that are out of our control, right? That we're going to experience. And sometimes when so many things are out of our control, our brain goes on fire and gives us a lot of unhelpful thoughts through the process. So that's kind of what I did. And when I did it, it actually was not even half as bad as I thought it would be. It was, easier, there's always stress, but it was a lot easier than I worked it up to be.
So this is Martha Jackson. I'm actually in the office, and I've been coming in for some time. This is going to sound very Pollyanna-ish, so I apologize. But honestly, I couldn't wait to get back to work. I just felt like having the division between my personal life and my work life was so important to me. It was very difficult for the entire, 2 big guys in the house working all working at the same time, all working remotely. And there wasn't such a, there wasn't that differentiation that I really felt was helpful for me. So it was a very positive thing to be able to come back to the office. And I started coming back quite some time ago. When the vaccine became available, I decided I will get my vaccine, I'll wait the 2 weeks, and then I will return to the office again. And then coming back and seeing faces that I've only seen like this has been just a really wonderful thing. I'll also say doing little things like I make sure I have flowers at my desk. I actually had COVID and I was in the hospital. And so for me, and that's where it's getting a little Pollyanna-ish, it was so important for me to be resilient. I just felt like I had the opportunity to come back stronger. And I also wanted to share with my staff that this was not scary, that this was possible. And so coming back on a regular basis, urging them to come back when they felt that it was right, making sure that the staffing was scheduled so that there wouldn't be too many of us, and then making the judgment to put plexiglass around. Now, I'm sure you understand that in our office, many of the folks, not all, but many of the folks in our office are individuals with disabilities and might have, pre-existing conditions. And it was of great concern for us to make sure that everyone was safe, but in many cases, they were the first to come back as well. Because again, that sense of resiliency coming back, stronger than ever. So for me, being here was, like I said, I couldn't wait. And I'm very grateful, honestly, that I had a job through all of this and that I was able to sustain myself and be a part of this great office.
Well, thank you, Martha, for being a model for your staff and being so transparent about your experiences during this time. I really appreciate that. We do have a question here. This person said, how do they even, any tips around small talk? Like, it's something that they haven't done in so long. And so how do they do small talk? You can always talk about the weather. That's one thing. That's always an easy go-to. Current events, and just how you're feeling. I think this is a wonderful time just to be, honest and see, we're all going through this together. We're all experiencing, a variety of different feelings and concerns. And, it's helpful to talk to one another, really normalize our feelings. We can find out how, other people are feeling, that we're not in this alone, and so when it comes to small talk, I say, just talk. Any other suggestions?
Yeah, Ayana, it's Maricela Brea speaking. I would also like to say, like, that small talk and those conversations before returning to the office was very helpful. And our commissioner and Martha, our assistant commissioner, they brought in the medical doctors to speak to us as well from DOHMH. They took in our suggestions, we provided suggestions, and they made sure that, that they took into account our safety. And when I went back to the office, unfortunately, Martha and I have not been in the office at the same time, but hopefully that will change. That first day back, our HR representative came by and checked in on me to see how I was doing. Our commissioner, Victor Calisi, we chatted, we discussed how it felt. We discussed my experience in going into the office. Now, my issue wasn't in going into the office, but more of traveling to the office. That anxiety. And that first day, someone sitting next to me, and I was like, oh my Lord, like someone's sitting next to me, when we've been, more isolated. And so you can plan, but when you are there, it's like you have to think like, okay, I had to take a few deep breaths and say, it's okay, I'm wearing my mask, I've been vaccinated. And so those things, like I said to myself, then I calmed down, and then, I switched trains and everything was fine, and they haven't been as overcrowded. And I've been able to find like the times that it's less crowded. So you just, it's kind of like taking that first step. And so it's good to interact and have that small talk with your colleagues that you haven't seen. Some I hadn't seen for a while. So it was just, like maybe monthly. I mean, my team members, I see them on a regular basis, on a weekly basis via Zoom. So I think it's so important to, when you go back, just to realize you may be anxious, but what can you do for yourself? What techniques? So for me, it was like a lot of deep breathing and just relaxing and knowing that I was going to get through that.
Thanks, Maricela. We are going to share with you some information about like mental health on the move. So we have a nice handout we're going to give you that has lots of tips that you can do just in the moment that can help you with, some emotions or large emotions that you might be having. So we do have quite a few questions in the chat section. One other person is talking about burnout and more responsibility in projects that are adding to stress. And so I would say just really have a conversation with your supervisor about what the expectations are and what is in your ability to do during this time. I say just have an open conversation. It's I think that, you know, in everyone's job, it's all different, all the different responsibilities we had throughout the city. And so I would say just have an open conversation as best as possible. We do have quite a few questions in the chat section. Let me see if I, someone said wearing a mask all day is exhausting. And you know what? I totally agree. It's exhausting. But taking a break and getting outside for your lunchtime can be helpful. I don't know if you have a private room. I know in our office, we have conference rooms. Perhaps you could take a break and go to a conference room where there is no one else to remove your mask for a period of time. So try to just find ways that you can kind of relieve yourself and take a short break to remove your mask so that you feel better. I see a raised hand. Alicia, would you like to say something?
Yes, so not that it's come up in the chat, but there is another resource that I wanted to share with you all. Again, of course, you know, depending, of course, on your level of comfortability. But as I mentioned earlier, you know, we've been seeing a rise in hate crimes, particularly against the Asian and Jewish community. And as we're returning back to work, that's given rise to fear of New York City employees that identify, you know, that are Asian or that are Jewish. Being afraid of being attacked on their way now to work, right? And I just wanted to share that, you know, the mayor had launched a community travel partner program. So again, if you are, depending on your level of comfortability, you can sign up to volunteer or to be paired with a colleague to commute to and from work. So I'm gonna drop that link into the chat.
Thanks, Alicia. We do have a question about city upgrades and keeping staff and clients safe from COVID-19. And I'm assuming that this person perhaps works directly with clients. Actually, I would love to be able to give that information, but unfortunately, I don't have that information. I don't have information about what individual agencies are doing to keep staff and clients safe from one another. I'm hopeful that there is a conversation going on and that our leadership is thinking about this because I'm sure that they are aware that this is going to be a concern, especially for the frontline persons who are working directly with clients. I would just say, call your agency, call the HR department to see what is actually being put in place and speak directly with your supervisor as well to have that conversation about what is being put in place to keep you safe so that you can still do your job. Alrighty, so, okay, so there's a question here, how many people are in the office and is your office a high traffic for the public? And so I guess this is another conversation about working directly with the public. Not everyone works in the same environment. And so I think it's just important for you to really be cognizant about what your specific environment is, what your specific job is, and what you can do to help yourself. There's lots of questions here. It's kind of hard, just to be honest, when you don't speak, it's kind of hard to read a paragraph and moderate at the same time. So please be with me, bear with me. We only have 8 minutes left. And I would like to just say that, yeah, the subways are less crowded. That's one thing I can say really quickly. And you know, we do have some self-care practices, if we can see the slides again, that we really want to be able to touch on before we end. That will probably answer some of the questions that are in the chat section. Alrighty, so we do have one more poll. We do have a poll that we'd like to just find out, like, how do you practice self-care? So if we can see the poll, and then we could see what are you doing. So, I mean, I think it's important for us to understand that we've been doing things to keep ourselves well throughout all of this, right? Whether it is you meditate, you talk to your friends, you listen to your music, exercise, journaling, those are all great things to do. So I actually don't see the poll. Do you all see the poll? Okay, perfect. All righty, perfect.
Ayana, since you don't see it, this is Martha. 14% meditate, 17% socialize, 30% listen to music, 36% exercise, maybe while they're listening to music, and 3% journal.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Martha.
Could
So
I just,
Uh-huh.
there's a question in the chat that I thought was really interesting.
Mhm.
And someone is looking for a polite comeback because some of the folks that are working in their offices have been working there and give the impression that they've been working harder than those who've been working remotely. I think that's a really interesting point. I'm wondering if you or Carrie has something that you might want to say about that.
So some people have been working harder than others.
Well, from what I gather, you know, there have been people who have returned to work and have people have been saying or giving the impression that those that have been in the field have been working harder than those who have been working remotely. And and I think that, you know, kind of knowing how to respond to that, where you can take care of yourself while not instigating anything, would probably be you know, a good thing to know. Some, like maybe, as she said, a clever comeback.
Well, you know, I don't know about you all. I can speak from my own experience. Yeah. You know, working in the office, I think it was you, Martha, who said it's the end of your day, right? And you know that you turn off the computer, you go home, the day is over. At home, working from home, you can turn back on your computer at about 6 o'clock, get that extra email out, finish that project, because you know tomorrow you got a webinar to do, so you could do some extra practice, do some extra things. And so you know, it's, you know, people working from home were not actually working. They were actually probably working a lot more than they probably did in the office. And so I think it's just, we don't want to compare. Our jobs are a variety of different jobs throughout the city, you know, and I think that, you know, we all keep the city running. And I think, you know, when we compare ourselves to others, no one really wins. So I think just, you know, just adding that, you know, we all work hard, we all keep the city running, and that's really the main the main objective. To say, maybe that's the easiest way to have easy conversation about that topic. The chat section is going crazy. Alicia, I see your hand raised, but I do want to call on Deborah. There was some Assistant Commissioner Polk. He's able to answer one of the questions related to telework being permanent. If he can just
Hello, hi, this is Daniel Pollack. How is everyone? So I just wanted to, I know a few people in the chat were asking about, you know, telework on a more permanent basis. And, you know, at this point, we're really focused on the return to the office during COVID. And obviously that continues to include telework as a part of that strategy. But we understand many employees want to see a more permanent policy. And, you know, it's something we've heard from others, and we'll keep that in mind as the city, you know, determines how to move forward after we get past this phase.
Thank you so much for joining the conversation and to be able to jump in and answer those questions that we can answer. Alicia, can we briefly say what you have to say before we move on? Because we do have a lot to cover in the last 3 minutes.
Yeah, sorry. I was just, you know, clever comebacks, I think, is a personal specialty of mine. So I really, I think just for folks, I think based off of the poll, 85% of us have been working remotely throughout this pandemic. And I think a takeaway from that experience has been that a lot of us are able to do our work from home, right? We don't need to physically be in the office in order to perform our work. In fact, I feel like I personally, speaking for myself, have found myself to be more productive when I'm cutting out commute time, right? That is like a good 45 minutes to and from work. Whether I'm commuting to meetings, I'm able to meet and participate in meetings more frequently virtually. So I feel like, you know, my productivity has increased being able to work from home. So I hope that, you know, for those of those that are working from home, that offers some type of comfort to you all. And I'm sorry that you're being shamed by your colleagues that are, you know, working in person.
Right. You know, I see Vanetta, a question about resentment. You know, unfortunately, we can't help others. We can't change others and their experiences. We can only share what we can only share our own experiences, and it will land the way it lands. I think if you're genuine and earnest in your conversation, it will speak volumes. So let's go on to the next slide, please. I want to make sure we get these self practices in. So self-care is really important during this time. It's very crucial. It's a deliberate action you do to take care of yourself. So connect with others. Our life expectancy is extended when we could continue to connect with the others. So please do it as much as possible. Maintaining that work-life balance is important, and ask for help. I think that's really important too. Ask for help if you need it. Next slide, please. And connect with your physical body. You know, we will be giving you that handout I talked about earlier, and there's lots of ways you could do a box breathing exercise to really connect with your body in the moment and help yourself. Take a walk, get outside, take that hour for lunch, and really enjoy the outside so that you can continue to be well during the times that you are in the office. Next slide. And manage your expectations, plan ahead. That's been really, really important for me, and I'm sure many other people. So be realistic. You don't have to be perfect all the time. So I know there are people on the call who have been talking about work responsibilities. You know, perfection, it's not a reality, right? My boss, she always tells me good enough is okay sometimes, right? Identify your strengths. Identify what you can do and you can't do, right? But I also identify how you've grown in this past year. Okay, there have been things that you have been able to do and conquer over this past year. And so kind of tap into those supports and that growth that you had in this past year. You know, it's important to note that you are not alone. And manage your expectations. Good enough can be okay. Next slide. So Be Well, we are here for you with all sorts of educational resources and wellness programming. Work Well is here for you. And so if you have any questions, you want us to bring this kind of conversation to your office, please just email us at nyc.gov, Be Well. And join us at nyc.gov, Be Well, that's our website. And you can you can request any kind of programming that you might see there and have this kind of conversation in your office. Next slide. We're over the hour. It's wonderful that there's still 100 people on the call. So I just want to get through these last few slides. Please join us on nyc.gov /upcoming events. We have lots of great events coming up. So One Fit Fest is an outdoor fitness class. It's going to happen on June 6th. It's a Sunday. From 9 to 12, different classes will take place up in Socorro Park in Harlem. Come out, enjoy 90s dance, soca, and boot camp. On June 10th, Eat Well to Live Well. It's going to be a Q&A with our resident nutritional specialist, and they will answer questions on how to eat well for your health and enjoy it. And on June 16th, there will be a conversation, LGBTQIA+, 101, Creating Inclusive Spaces. Join us to celebrating Pride Awareness Month by tuning into this discussion to learn how to create inclusive spaces for the LGBTQIA+ community. And the next slide, we're going to have male role models. There will be a program on male role models next month, as well as men's health fair. But you can go to on .nyc.gov /upcoming events to find all the events. Please do take our annual pulse, whether you have participated in our program or not. We want to hear from you. How can we be better? And what would you like to see from our program? So it's really important to us. And then lastly, I just want to say thank you to all of our panelists for joining. Thank you so much for sharing all the information that you did today. I want to say thank you for everyone who has joined and stayed on over the time. You will receive this recording as well as all the resources that we discussed and some more information that we haven't shared today, how to help you in this transition. It's been our pleasure. Enjoy the rest of your day.